All right, let's turn to battleground Pennsylvania now and the race for U.S. Senate between John Fetterman, the Democrat, and Dr. Mehmet Oz, the Republican. It looks like we are finally going to see those two candidates go head-to-head in a televised debate. Fetterman's campaign agreeing to take the stage on October 25th in Harrisburg. The announcement comes after weeks of delay and concern about Fetterman's health and his ability to actually serve in that role. Joining us now for more on this is host of the Rubin Report, Dave Rubin, author of Don't Burn This Country. Dave, great to see you as always.
John, I apologize for wearing a jacket and shirt as opposed to the John Fetterman or Fetterwoman hoodie that he's usually accustomed to wearing. I felt this is the John Bachman show. I wanted to show up properly, but maybe I should have just worn a hoodie.
We try to keep things classy, Dave, but I do appreciate your at least, acknowledgement that we could have gone with some LARPing here, some John Fetterman LARPing. We could have grown some, your facial hair is not experimental. I guess his is considered experimental, a little too old for that. But we wanted to compare and contrast candidates, not just Senate candidates, but other candidates as well. And we had to ask this question, who is the more, I guess the worst, maybe the worst candidate out there on the campaign trail today? It could be John Fetterman, or it could be Charlie Crist. I think we have some visual evidence to help, set this up. Here's, I think, Charlie Crist.
Where do you stand on vaccine passports and businesses?
We should have vaccine passports. I think that's important.
Okay, so Charlie Crist is running against Ron DeSantis on a platform of supporting teachers' unions and vaccine passports and mask mandates. And then we have John Fetterman, a different situation. He's having a little trouble with his own words because of his stroke.
It's such the most important race for the Senate here for 22. We have to replace Pat Toomey. Oh, no.
So that's hard to watch, too, with Fetterman. And we're not trying to make fun of the aspect of that, but neither one of these guys are good candidates. You got Charlie Crist, who speaks too much, probably, and John Fetterman, who can't really talk at all. Who's the worst of these two, in your opinion, Dave?
I'm going to let it slide with Fetterman because of the stroke or whatever. But yes, it is a little bizarre that the Democrats seem unable to find candidates who can string together a full sentence, whether it's Biden or Fetterman or Kamala, who actually does put the sentence together, but it just doesn't make any sense, or it's just completely circular. Look, Crist is the worst candidate running right now across the country because he is absolutely nothing. If he is anything, it is the thing that people hate about politicians. He is a former conservative Republican who has flip-flopped on every single issue. The idea that someone who was for vaccine passports would show their face in the free state of Florida and say that they're going to run for governor. He's absolutely nothing. He has no support. DeSantis obviously is going to crush it, as he well should. I mean, he in essence, I think, is, although it doesn't say it on his desk, I think he basically is the president of the United States in terms of leadership at this point. But the Democrat Party in Florida, fortunately, is in shambles here, and Crist is just the sacrificial lamb. They basically were like, look, can we find anybody who is willing to do this? And Crist is just like, I have nothing to do. Nobody likes me. I'll get out there.
The only way this is going to make sense to me at the end of this is if Charlie Crist pulls off his mask and it's Charlie Crist, the Republican, underneath, and he said, I fooled all you Democrats for the last 4 years. I pretended to be a Democrat, and I ran the worst campaign ever just to make it easier on Ron DeSantis. And as it relates to Fetterman, again, it's not the health issue as much, but we learned this week, Dave, after criticizing Dr. Mehmet Oz for owning multiple properties, we found out that John Fetterman owns 8 different properties in Braddock, Pennsylvania. So he's sort of a real estate magnate himself. I don't know if Braddock is the best place to be investing in real estate, but there you go. And also, speaking of terrible gubernatorial candidates related to Charlie Crist, how about Stacey Abrams? Let's take a look at her.
I have never denied that I lost. I don't live in the governor's mansion. I would have noticed. And there's this clip that's going around, and it shows me saying that we won. And what I was referring to was that we won in terms of communities that were long left out of the electoral process.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, let's play the clip that she's talking about, just to be sure.
I do have one very affirmative statement to make. We won.
You refused to concede and say that you lost. Do you stand by that decision today?
Absolutely. The election was not fair. The process was not fair.
Was the election in Georgia statewide a free and fair election?
It was not a free and fair election.
They'll say
John,
anything.
She literally went on The View, the show that she was on, saying she didn't do the thing that she did to tell them. I mean, you can't make this up. You cannot make this up with these people. But as I've been saying for quite some time, this is the one type of privilege that exists in America, Democrat privilege. They can question elections. They can lie about everything. They can spread disinformation. And they get away with it, and nobody gets banned, and everyone's on Facebook and Twitter, and we don't have to have meetings at the White House with big tech to figure out how to deal with them. But, you know, if the rest of us dare question anything or just, you know, try to figure out what time it is, we're on a list.
Yes, and how dare you retweet or repost anything that liberals post? Because then, of course, anyway.
That'll get you too. That'll get you too.
You know what we say? They know that we know that they're lying, yet they lie anyway, Dave. That's the key phrase. All right, let's talk about President Biden's visit to Detroit yesterday. And I was curious about this because he seemed to be having a great time. He even had a TikToker along for the ride to follow us every move. He played in that yellow Corvette. You know, he seemed to be having a good time, like I said. Meanwhile, we were hearing about this looming railroad strike potentially. I'm not sure if that was a real thing or not. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But if this was really a big concern, effectively could shut down our entire economy, should Joe Biden be playing with electric cars in Detroit?
Look, the cynical part of me, which at this point is most of me related to this administration, is that they are intentionally doing everything wrong. If there is an economic policy or a foreign policy issue or a border issue, whatever it might be, a COVID-related issue, if there is a way of doing the wrong thing, that is what they will do every time. If we have an inflation problem, what will they do? Spend more money while calling it inflation reduction. If we have a transportation problem, what will they do? They'll drive up the price of oil. Everything that they do is backwards. So yes, it should not surprise anybody that Joe shows up and he sits in the fancy car. By the way, he was holding Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of, she's the governor of Illinois, holding her governor of Michigan, sorry, holding her hand as he walked through the place. I mean, the optics of it were just terrible. But none of this should surprise anybody. It is what it is with this guy, and you know, he goes where they tell him to go, and he says, often poorly or mangled, what they tell him to say.
Well, if Hunter and Ashley Biden cared about Joe Biden, they'd be talking about taking his car keys away. It's a conversation a lot of kids have to have about their parents. It's maybe that time for Joe Biden. I don't know. But let's talk about what I call the alternative infrastructure. Dave, remember when alternative used to be cool when we were teenagers back in the 90s? It's going to be cool again, I think, because what I'm referring to is what Rumble is doing, what you're doing with socials. You know, there are with locals. There is a alternative infrastructure being built for big tech. And we learned this week, too, that there's a Chinese spy working at Twitter. Nobody seems to care at Twitter too much. There are no Chinese spies working at locals, right?
There are no Chinese spies working at locals. I can be quoted on that. Good. I also never slept with a Chinese spy, unlike Eric Swalwell, the congressman from California. But joking aside, yes, Rumble and Locals. Locals was a company I started. We eventually merged with Rumble. We are building the alternate pipes of the internet. We basically need an all-new internet from the bottom up, where not every website is hosted on Amazon AWS, where they can just literally push a button or swipe a screen and blow you up as they did to Parler. We need to have places where speech is treated neutrally, where there isn't one side putting their foot on the scale for the other side. That is exactly what Rumble is doing. That is what Locals is doing. And yeah, there's a lot of good energy. I think something's happening in New York next week related to all of this.
Can we talk about it? Or are we going to get in trouble?
I'm honestly not sure, but
okay, then let's not do it.
Information out there. Maybe other people could talk about it.
Yes, they can.
But there's good things happening. Look, no, it is public knowledge that Rumble is going public. Okay. And in my opinion, for the first time, and I speak just for myself when I say this, there will be a company, a big tech company that is specifically, it is baked in, that free speech is baked in the ethos of the company. So free speech is going public. That is a beautiful thing, and it is what we have all been waiting for. Yeah, well, we end our Fridays shows, finally some good news. We'll do a little good news on Thursday, and that is something to look forward to over the horizon. More free speech. Rumble's leading the way on that, along with you and Local. Great to see you, Dave, as always. Good to see you, John. And again, I'm sorry about the sweatshirt thing. I should have put it on. Next time, we'll figure something out. Halloween's right around the corner. Fetterman's a great costume, too, for Halloween, if you need one. Great to see you, Dave. If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.